Populist messages, they seem to be absolutely everywhere in the media, right? There's this popular theory that populism and modern media are just, a perfect match. But is that the whole story? Let's unpack the real and, frankly, more complicated relationship between the two based on what the research actually tells us.
So, take this quote from Nigel Farage. This is just a textbook example of populist rhetoric. You see how it pits the good, virtuous, ordinary people against the corrupt, evil, big business, and big politics. It's incredibly powerful, it's very direct, and wow, it definitely gets a ton of attention.
And that's the big question, isn't it? How do these us versus them messages seem to completely dominate our headlines and our news feeds, day in and day out? Let's dig into the most common explanation out there.
Okay, this is where the media-friendly theory comes into play. The core idea here is that populist politics is just perfectly suited for our modern commercial mass media. This whole theory is really rooted in a concept that academics call the mediatization of politics. So what on earth is mediatization? Well, put simply, it's the idea that over time, politics has started to play by the media's rules. So instead of the media just reporting on what politicians do, politics itself actually starts to change its shape to fit what the media is looking for. And you can see the clash right here. I mean, it's pretty stark. Traditional political logic is all about ideology, policy, a bit dry, right? But commercial media logic? That's driven by what's newsworthy. We're talking conflict, big personalities, and this blend of infotainment. The tension between these two is just obvious.
And this visual shows that fundamental shift. We've gone from a pretty simple model, where media just kind of filtered a political message, to a new one, where the media is actively influencing the entire agenda. So politicians, in turn, craft their messages to be media-friendly right from the get-go. It creates this really powerful feedback loop.
So the theory goes that populism has all the right ingredients for this new media world. I mean, look at this list. It offers juicy, controversial content, simple good versus evil stories, a huge focus on charismatic leaders, and this really flamboyant, emotional style. On paper, it looks like a match made in heaven for a media that's constantly hungry for clicks and ratings.
But, and this is a really big but, here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. When researchers actually put this very neat and tidy theory to the test, the results were, well, they weren't what anyone expected.
So the big question becomes, is this popular idea, this special relationship between populism and the media, actually true? Does the hard data back it up? Well, the short answer is, not really.
Okay, finding number one. That idea that tabloid media are the natural allies of populists. Research shows it's just not true. Study after study found no consistent evidence that tabloids were any more pro-populist than other newspapers.
And what about finding number two? The whole idea that populists just get more attention? Well, research found that both populist and non-populist politicians were actually given about the same level of prominence in the news. So much for that special advantage, right?
And this one might be the most surprising of all. That core assumption that populist messages are inherently more emotional or simplistic, even that's being seriously questioned. There's just no consistent data to prove it. The really crucial takeaway here is
there's a massive gap between the theory we all hear about and what the evidence actually says. That simple story of populism fits media logic just doesn't seem to hold up under scrutiny. So clearly, we need a better way to understand what's really going on.
So, if that old theory is flawed, what's the alternative? Well, researchers are proposing we look at it not as a simple one-way street, but as a complex, messy, and dynamic ecosystem where both politicians and the media are constantly influencing each other.
The reality is so much more tangled. Instead of one side just adapting to the other, what we really see is a system of constant interaction. Let's break down what that actually looks like. There are basically three main ways they interact. First, there's the direct path. We all know. Politicians pitch stories, the media reports on them. Simple. Second, you've got the indirect path, where politicians use their own social media to just bypass journalists entirely. And third, and this is really interesting, there's a mixed interaction, where the media itself creates populist content, like framing a story as the people versus the so-called experts.
So the key takeaway from this new model is this. It is not about politics surrendering to media logic. It is a symbiotic relationship. Media adapts to what politicians are doing to get content, and politicians adapt to the media to get visibility. At this point, they've become so intertwined, their logics are often one and the same.
This new ecosystem model, it gives us a much better framework for sure.
but it also reveals just how much we still don't know. The research actually highlights several huge questions that we still need to find answers to.
For instance, do populist messages really have a unique style? We're not even sure. And are media outlets promoting them for profit, for clicks, or for their own political reasons? And critically, how does social media just change this entire game? And what is the real effect of all this on us, the voters?
And that leaves us with one final, massive question to think about. In this complex, tangled ecosystem of social media, traditional news, and political messaging, who is actually setting the agenda? Is it the politicians? Is it the media? Or have we, the audience, somehow become the most powerful actors of all?